check in with Paul Finebaum, presented by Allstate. Paul, say what you want about Notre Dame, and the doubters have been there all year. They're playing for a national championship after coming back late to beat Penn State.
No, and it was really pretty remarkable. Matt, so many things come to mind. The fact that I found myself cheering for Notre Dame. This is a school that a lot of folks grew up hating, and now they're everybody's favorite. Everyone loves Marcus Freeman. His future is really out of this sight. But I couldn't help but think about James Franklin. A lot of defenders out there saying, "Oh yeah, I liked his aggressiveness," but it still failed. And I think ultimately he has to be judged by the results. You can blame Drew Allar. It was the third progression, but he still put himself in that position. And considering the kind of game that he had, I didn't understand it at all.
Yeah, so I have, be it on this platform, radio, television, whatever the case might be, I have always questioned those who thought that Drew Allar was the difference between Penn State being same old Penn State and being a national championship contender. Now, you could argue because they were in the semifinals, they were in fact a national championship contender, Paul, but I just never bought Drew Allar. I think their running backs with Katron Allen, Nicholas Singleton, Tyler Warren, they had everything they needed, but it's always been, to me, Drew Allar that's held them back from going to a national championship game. And I think we saw that last night. I hate saying that about a college kid, but end of the day, Allar's the reason that Notre Dame is playing in the national championship because of the late turnover. He didn't complete one pass to a receiver last night, not one.
No, and some of our friends up and down the network are saying, "Well, you can't blame James Franklin." Yeah, yes, you can. I mean, he knows all that. That's his job. He didn't make the decision, but he gave the keys to the car to the guy who did. And I didn't see the upside. Overtime's always risky, and I hate it, frankly, the way some of the overtimes we've had to suffer through this year. But with that defense, with the game record that they have on that side of the ball, I mean, I would have taken my chance as opposed to just throwing the ball up, and that's exactly what he did. I mean, I didn't understand. I mean, if you're not going to make a good decision in that situation, when are you going to make a good decision? Yeah. So why give him the chance?
Yeah. So Penn State, look, I believe you and I have said it. The playoff is created for teams like Penn State, perennial 10-2. The 12-teamer, the 10-2, can't win the big game in a regular season, but get in. They had a nice little pairing in the bracket to get through SMU and Boise State. So this kind of was tailor-made for them. And at the end of the day, James Franklin, again, in a game against the top 5 team, Paul, he falls short.
And I know I'm overthinking, or maybe I'm underthinking, but I think James Franklin is thinking to himself, I've got to do something different. I can't play I just can't play the odds of overtime. Because I mean, listen, when your record is as bad as his is, I mean, it's like in golf. I mean, every time you go for the flag on the left side of the green at 11 at Augusta, you knock it in the water. So you say, "Oh, I'll try to turn the ball this time," and then you overhit it. I think that's him. He can't win. I mean, listen, let's just be honest. James Franklin can't win a big game. He didn't do it this year. He's not going to do it next year, and he's not going to do it any year because that's just who he is. That doesn't make him a bad coach. It just makes him a jinx coach in these situations. And people will say, "Well, hey, what are you talking about? He can't win a big game. He's in the semifinals. What did he had SMU and Boise State. Please don't give me SMU and Boise State. Nobody's ever had a luckier draw, and that doesn't qualify as signature wins from my book."
By the way, remarkable knowledge on Augusta National, by the way, in the par 4 11th, where the water does come into play on your second shot. I think that is a phenomenal analogy. But yeah, so Penn State, same as it ever was. They teased a lot of people that may be thinking this was the year, but Notre Dame, as we switch over to them, and I never have a problem admitting when I was wrong. I was wrong after the NIU game to think that, same old Notre Dame, they're going to get a lot of preseason accolades, then they're going to go ahead and step on themselves. They've since, 12 in a row, 13 in a row. They've been as hot as any team in the country. They're the most self-identifiable team in the country. They know who they are. We know who they are. And, Paul, that's good enough for Marcus Freeman and the Irish to play for a national championship.
Yeah, I mean, we may very well have a national championship game with two teams that were counted out for dead. NIU and Michigan. Now, Michigan's a little different than losing to Northern Illinois. But the reason we all said it, and Matt, everyone said the same thing, was because Notre Dame didn't have anything else that they were going to be able to get as what so-called signature wins.
Right.
Southern Cal was already starting to fade away. They really, Army, Navy are not going to get you a lot of cred in a college football playoff committee. And the win over Texas A&M in the first game just dissipated when they ended up losing 5 games. So that's why we all said that. But to Marcus Freeman's credit, he persevered. That team got better. I mean, the win over Georgia was just simply unbelievable. A lot of circumstances went into it. But, I mean, they're just a tough team, and they're a fun team to watch. And I think that's why, your grandfather or father is having a hard time dealing with Notre Dame being America's team right now.
Oh, we are awakening the echoes somehow, some way, in a world that doesn't exist, in a parallel universe. Notre Dame has become a national lovable
Yeah.
story. And what I'm learning, and I kind of thought about this morning, I like Brian Kelly. I think he's a good coach. But I think people's problem with Notre Dame in the past wasn't Notre Dame. It was Brian Kelly. Now they've got a coach that people nationally love. And now Brian Kelly's sitting down there in Baton Rouge. He left Notre Dame because he didn't think he could win a national championship there. So he goes to Baton Rouge because you get a different athlete down in Baton Rouge. And now here's Notre Dame playing for a national championship, not LSU.
Yeah, and listen, my relationship with Brian Kelly is very close. He comes on our show every
Yeah.
Monday right before I meet with you, and he's likable, but he used to be very surly. And when he was at Notre Dame, he was not likable. He had that 28-point blowout against Alabama in the 12 national championship game. He had 2 other inexplicable playoff appearances, and I understand his frustration. It's also, you've been in a place for a long time,
Right.
and it's just not the same. And to me, he made a good decision, but it's one of those situations where the words will haunt him. And he said it, not you, not me, about about going someplace where the resources were. And he lost 4 games this year, and he was nowhere near the national championship. And having been around a lot of Notre Dame fans this year, I was with them all week in New Orleans a week ago. I mean, they are getting as much joy out of winning as they are rubbing it in Brian Kelly's face.